Hello, I'm Dr. Valentin Voroshilov. I've been in the field of education for many years, playing many different roles. I was born and grew up in Russia. I had a pretty good career in Russia, but when I got a chance to move my family to the US, I took that chance. After starting again from the bottom, I have regained most of my previous career achievements. I'm pretty proud of this, considering I had no formal education in English and no professional network to support my efforts. This is the title of my presentation. This conference is a big professional development event. When attending such an event, the result depends heavily on the attitudes of the attendees. Having a passive attitude means that during an event, an attendee does not search for specific means for advancing his or her own practice. The activity is limited by seeing or hearing something new. Having an active attitude means that during an event, an attendee searches for specific means for advancing his or her own practice. Such a means can include a specific knowledge or a technical instrument or a potential collaborator or else. For example, I believe that a standard for measuring learning outcomes must satisfy the following 5 conditions. The time has come to create a coalition of individuals and institutions which goal is to developing the universal standard for measuring learning outcomes in physics, for starters. And that is one of the reasons why I'm attending this conference. When a teacher attends a professional development event, he or she always has a choice to make. The teacher can take a passive position, I'm just looking for something new and interesting, or the teacher can take an active position, I have a problem and I need to find the means to solve it. The latter position significantly increases chances that after the event the teacher will be making some constructive changes in his or her teaching practice. And that is what we all want from a professional development event. This is a quote from a book by Reference Davis. When I started my career, I did not have a say in the menu of courses that my district taught. And we read in the end, a large majority of teachers were taking courses just to earn hours. That was more than 10 years ago, and sadly, in many school districts, this is still the case. Various researchers have been looking for methods to ensure that after attending a professional development workshop, a teacher will bring into his or her practice new knowledge presented at the workshop. One of the practices which proved to be efficient is based on the activity theory and called professional designing. Professional designing helps to ignite and maintain a process of transformative development of an individual or an institutional educational practice. The theoretical foundation of this branch of the research can be found in publications of Shedrovitsky and his colleagues and followers. By definition, professional designing is an intellectual activity resulting on constructing an image of an ideal professional situation and planning activities aimed at the transformation of the actual professional situation, making it closer to the ideal one. The material result of a professional designing is a project. In order to transform his or her professional situation, teachers must be willing to change their own practices and must be able to make the change. This means that professional skills, abilities, competencies of a teacher should include not only specific subject-related skills or teaching-related personal qualities, but also meta skills, allowing to manage processes of idealization, reflection, goal setting, action scheduling, and so on, which are required for transforming a human practice. A combination of such skills forms the ability for designing their own teaching practice. A professional designing is an activity that takes place primarily in the area of personal values and motives, goals and objectives, actions and procedures, problems and possible solutions. When conducting a professional designing, one does not deal with real objects or subjects, but manipulate with abstract concepts relevant to one's professional practice. The first product of a professional designing is a project idea. In simple terms, a project idea of a designer describes in his or her words what is wrong with what I do and how will I fix it. The presence of a project idea does not automatically ensures its future realization, but it indicates the direction of the future actions of the designer. The project idea becomes the basis for the development of a detailed professional project, which is a textual representation of a current professional situation, certain professional problems, and proposed steps for solving those problems, including criteria and procedures for assessing the progress. The most important product of a professional designing is a personal professional project, the existence of which significantly increases chance for a teacher of implementing in the future practice knowledge presented during a workshop. A professional designing as a human activity is essentially situational. Its ultimate goal is to find mechanisms for self-transforming a concrete current professional situation of a projecteur. A projecteur never works alone. There are always active or potential collaborators or competitors. An effective form for coordinating professional goals and actions based on the implementation of project-aimed activities is the so-called Activity Organizing Workshop, or AOW. AOW participants usually represent co-workers from an institution or an institutional entity, or represent the same district. Sometimes it happens at a retreat. Communicating processes ignited during AOW and aimed at unveiling images, views, and opinions of participants about professional activities of themselves and others are complicated and sometimes emotional. That demands the involvement of an experienced moderator, aka a methodologist, aka a methodologist. Guided by a methodologist, AOW participants become actively engaged into an individual professional designing. As the result of this work, the participants inevitably advance their ability to conduct a professional designing. The effectiveness of AOW strongly correlates with the experience of a methodologist moderating the event. It is very important for the success of the whole event that participants would be willing to openly discuss their teaching experience, including such personal and usually internal matters as their values, moral limits, beliefs, life expectations, professional aptitudes, goals, and actions. This conversation usually leads to an eventual realization of the existence of some gap between the results and the structure of actual teaching practice and the declared teaching goals and methods. When the existence of this gap is clearly presented to a participant, the so-called problematic situation has been reached. All precedents of AOW demonstrate that when teachers are immersed into a professional designing, it positively affects their teaching practice in general and an ability to self-improve their teaching practice in particular. The conclusions on the effectiveness of the project-oriented methods of organizing teacher professional growth were made on the basis of individual interviews, surveys, and reflective feedback from teachers, and observation of teachers' activities during events and while teaching students before and after events. Thank you for your time.